The Charlotte Ledger Podcast is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Charlotte Ledger Podcast. I'm Steve Dunn. To find out more about the Charlotte Ledger, visit thecharlotteledger.com. Welcome, Tony Mecia.
Glad to be here.
Well, you have just put out an article about how is the Ledger doing. And so in an open-ended sort of way, let me just throw it to you off the cuff. How's the Ledger doing?
Reminds me of these State of the Union addresses. The president gets up there and says, "The State of the Union is strong." And they wild applause. I would say we're doing fine. We're doing well, fine to well. I mean, are we? It's interesting, Steve, and we can get into this if you want, but it's like there's this sort of pressure. You sort of feel it where it's like you always want to project that you are exceeding expectations, that you are crushing it, that, and this is probably sort of maybe a holdover from kind of a tech way of thinking, you know, these tech companies that they're always adding users and they're just crushing it. And there's great encouraging signs. And so you definitely feel that pressure to kind of project things are awesome. Things are very, I would say with the Ledger, I wouldn't say awesome. I would say they're, from a business point of view, very good. We continue to grow in an environment where it's very difficult. You have a lot of challenges out there in the media, a lot of competitors, both, you know, traditional media competitors as well as just people's time. So the bottom line is we're continuing to grow. That's good. We're continuing to do more things. That's good. And we're fulfilling the mission, you know, that we had when we started out about 6 years ago. So I think there's a lot to be encouraged about.
That's a mixed answer, Tony.
Is it?
Well, it sounds like you're positive and you want to appear to be positive. But one of the things you touched on is that there are multiple ways of looking at how you're doing, right? So, for example, are you doing good work? Are you adhering to your own high standards? Are you serving the community in a meaningful way? These are questions, the answers to which reflect on how you're doing. And then there's how we're doing from a business standpoint. Are we paying our bills? Are we growing as a company? And then even then, if the question is, are we growing as a company, does that mean that you're making money for the sake of making money? Or are you making money to put in your own pocket? Or are you making money to grow the things that you can do to expand the offering? Or are you making money so you can sell the business someday? What I'm saying is there are a lot of different lenses through which you can evaluate how the Ledger is doing. And I don't know if I'm from the outside looking in because I'm one of the hosts of the Charlotte Ledger podcast. So I guess I'm on the inside in that way, but I'm not on the inside in the way that you and Christina and Lindsey are. From the outside looking in, it appears that the product offering, the work itself is executing at an extremely high level. And I wonder if you agree with that. I wonder if you're ambivalent about that part of it.
No, I think we're doing some really good work. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to undersell it. I mean, I think we're doing really some fantastic work. So, yeah, I mean, there are a number of different ways to evaluate, you know, to answer the question, how is the Ledger doing? You know, I guess I sort of answered on the business side of things, but certainly on the content, quote unquote content side and the editorial, you know, side, the articles people read, the podcasts they listen to, you know, what we offer to people, I think certainly we're doing extremely well. And people seem to be very happy with what we're doing. You know, it's always sort of I don't want to say half empty, half full. Yeah, I mean, we're continuing to grow. We have, I think I said in the piece, about, you know, 3,800 or so paying subscribers. And that's great. The Charlotte region is like 2 million people. So, there's a large percentage of people who are not paying subscribers, who are not free subscribers, who have never heard of the Charlotte Ledger. So part of me is like, well, gosh, it would be great to be doing better, to be reaching more people. But given what we've got, given the staff that we have, and given the sort of the nature of our business, I'm happy with it.
All right, let's just dive into that. You've had this article about how is the Ledger doing, and the business part comes second, right? You addressed the work that you're doing, the important ways in which you're serving the community first, and then you talked about metrics and revenues and stuff like that. I was surprised at the small number of subscribers. You know, this is something that even the free subscribers is about 26,000 or so, and I think a 4,800 paid. Does that sound about right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too in the weeds. There are different ways of counting that. But yes, about 4,800 people receive our paying edition, yes.
I gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, let me just tell you, as a person out in the world, as a resident of Charlotte, one of the things that surprises and concerns me is how often I talk to somebody about the Charlotte Ledger and they just say they just don't know what I'm talking about. On the subject of like letting people know that the Charlotte Ledger exists, how do you do that?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. And a lot of people assume that we're sort of neglecting the marketing side because, I hear this a lot. I heard this several times in the last week. It's like, I've talked to a bunch of people. I try to evangelize for you all as often as possible, and most people have never heard of you. And on the one hand, that's, we like to think we're at this about 6 years now. If people haven't heard of us, I'm like, gosh, why haven't they heard of us? On the other hand, it shows there's, room for us to grow potentially. So there is a lot that, we do. I mean, the best way to, I think, to become known, do you want to, creating information and creating, news and putting out articles that are, or that are talked about and spread around. Like, that's a very good way. They also have more traditional marketing channels, right? So we do some paid ads on social media. We've been working to establish, partnerships in the community, Independent Picture House. We have a partnership with the Sharon. I speak at every year at, a few Rotary clubs. I'm on WFAE every week. So we're getting out there in the community and we're telling our story. But I would say it's difficult, I think, for any business to try to tell people who you are and to tell that story, because people are in a lot of different places. And so, short of a, massive marketing campaign with billboards around I-277, it's just hard. It's hard to reach people, frankly.
I get it. I hear you. The work itself is exceptionally strong, and you're innovative, and you've been recognized as such in this sort of new media world. The whole business model of a Substack newsletter is a new thing, and you're doing it well. Can't ignore the other, though. You got to have like as much internet savvy brought to that side of it, right? In the same sort of way. I of course don't know what the answer is there,
Right. No, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is we're not ignorant of that. We're not ignoring that, but it is very difficult. I mean, we spend money on marketing and paid advertising, but that only gets you so far. I mean, I do think, it's going to be sort of a little by little thing. I don't think there, we've been searching for, is there a growth hack? And we talked to a bunch of people in this industry, and there's not really a growth hack.
Right.
If there is, it's that it needs to start on a foundation of really solid work. That's for sure. And with that, we're not going to compromise. Is there more we could do? Are there more things we could try? We throw a lot against the wall and see what sticks. And it's about doing little things consistently well, I think, over time, as opposed to falling into some untapped vein of new subscribers that just comes raining down on us, if I can mix them up.
Well, we'd like to have more subscribers. We'd like to have more money. That's business in a nutshell. But let's talk about what the Ledger is and what you are offering to the people who subscribe, whether it's free or paid. You've got a number of it's primarily email newsletters, I think is a safe way to put it. You refer to it as the main newsletter, the Charlotte Ledger itself.
Yeah, the flagship, sometimes we call it.
The flagship. So there's a flagship newsletter that comes out 4 times a week, and it's twice a week for the free subscribers, right?
Right. They get an abbreviated version twice a week that the paid people get the full version of. Yeah. So if you're on the free list, you'll get 2 complete issues, and then
you still get
half
4
issues.
For the free subscription gets 4 emails a week.
Correct.
But 2 of them are abbreviated.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And then the paid subscribers get the Ways of Life newsletter if they want it.
Yes, there's an obituaries newsletter. Comes out on Tuesdays, yes.
And then there's Football Friday. This goes to everyone, right?
We prefer pronouncing it Football Friday. But yes, it's not about American football.
Football. But it's about the Charlotte.
It's about soccer, yes.
Well, it's
pro soccer.
The Charlotte Football Club in particular,
correct.
Right? So there's
speaking of, so part of the idea behind that is some people say, why do you have a soccer newsletter? That's kind of weird compared to what you're doing. And the part of the thinking was we can use that. We can reach some new people who might not be super interested in, say, land development, which we cover pretty strongly in the main ledger, but we can reach some other people and we can bring them into the fold. So that's another part of the marketing, I think, is sort of new products, different products, reaching different people.
And this Football Friday goes to everyone, free and paid. Is that right?
There's not a paid version of it. If you want it, you can sign up for it and you will receive it. Yes. So it doesn't go to 26,000 people. It goes to about 9,000 people.
It's optional, but you're not charging for it. For
not charging for it.
Gotcha. And kudos to you for not sending unwanted email newsletters to people.
Correct.
That is an important business practice.
Right. We're not. It's not a marketing operation in which we're trying to blanket people with emails they don't want.
It's all opt-in, and a classic example of that is sort of a pop-up temporary email newsletter, Mountain Updates.
Yes.
And this is being spearheaded by Lindsey Banks, and who herself comes from Swannanoa, North Carolina, and which was affected by Hurricane Helene, and has been covering developments in that part of the state since the hurricane.
Yes, I mean, she's doing a great job on that. When the storm first hit in late September, we very quickly stood it up. We had daily updates for 2.5 weeks. We've since scaled it back as sort of the news has waned out of there, but people really seem to enjoy that. It's kind of a step back view of here's what's going on that you need to know about, somewhere between, it wasn't designed to say, here's where you can get fresh water, here are the locations and so it doesn't do that, but it's a little bit of a step back because, Charlotte has a lot of connections, as you know, Steve, to the North Carolina mountains. And so we want to sort of keep people in the loop on some of the key developments. And again, the business model is not, entirely free. No ads. So you might say, gosh, is that really wise from a business point of view to invest resources in something where you don't see an immediate payback? We look at it like this is very much on brand for us. We're going to do smart, responsible journalism, and then because we think that serves our audience, and then and the feedback on it was tremendous. People really enjoyed that. So that's something we're keeping our customers happy.
I think you're totally on the right track in terms of as we're talking about the work versus the business. I think that your focus on the work first and the business will come is the right one. I'm sure is frustrating. It's like when you put on a play and the audience doesn't come and it's half empty seats. It drives you crazy because you feel like, but both it creates an economic challenge because it's just you need money to do the things that you're doing. But it just seems like such a wasted opportunity for the community to not be getting this work. It just feels like it's a loss. It's like you're shouting out into the void.
Well, I do also want to point out, like, this is not, I don't want to dwell too much on the negative. I mean, we can pay our bills. We have a viable business in which the money coming in is equal to the money going out. We're not spending more than we have. We don't have investors breathing down our necks saying, you guys need to turbocharge this, figure it out. And, I sleep very well at night. It's fine. It's good. But the problem is, maybe it's not a problem. We want to do more. We always want to do more, and we probably need to maybe rein that in a little bit, as opposed to saying, okay, we just want to, grow and do more.
One of the ways we're going to get there is by offering the Commercial Real Estate Whispers. And this is not a newsletter itself, but a column or a feature of the flagship newsletter. Is that right?
That's correct. At some point, we might spin it out into its own newsletter. But and the thinking here is, again, is this a mass market publication? No. Is there a lot of interest in growth and development in Charlotte? Yes. So how do we serve that interest that's out there? And there it's one that is, and we can see how many people click through to read it, and it's not zero. I mean, it's not 100%. It's probably, I don't know, each one maybe 10 or 15% of the people who receive the main newsletter click through to read it. But it has a very devoted following, and so, I mean, it's sort of it's really an interesting question of, as we grow, do we develop things that are designed, for everybody to know equally, or do we carve out different niches and say, okay, we can pick off a few things here and sort of scratch the itch of a very dedicated group of readers? So that's sort of an experiment on that.
Just to list the other offerings of the Charlotte Ledger, you've got the Newcomer's Guide. This is a series of emails that you can sign up for if you're a newcomer. You've got the Election Hub. This is a sort of nonpartisan, just the facts, sort of information clearinghouse related to the candidates for office in all the local races. You've got the Charlotte Ledger podcast, which we're listening to as we
that's
speak.
fantastic, by the way.
And you have the event board. This is one that I didn't even know this existed. The event board. It's like almost like a community calendar where people can submit their events and have them shown on a calendar.
If you look at a lot of other publications and their calendars, I mean, there are a lot of calendars out there, but, we often hear, well, it doesn't really speak to me, which really sort of speaks to the growth of Charlotte and how it's, it's sort of hard to develop things for everybody when everybody has different interests.
Well, and that gets back to what you were talking about. How do you grow? Do you serve different niches, or do you try to sort of be all things to all people in one place? And one of the first things that you mentioned in your article was about what the media landscape is like now. And I think it's safe to say that it's a lot more fragmented, and it's become a lot more fragmented just in the course of our professional lives over the last 25 to 30 years or so. I think it's safe to say that it used to be that the Charlotte Observer was the commonly understood newspaper of record for the city of Charlotte, right? It was it was the text from which the conversations spun out, right? If you're at lunch with somebody and you're talking about like what happened, we all knew generally what happened about the same things based on what the Observer chose to cover and what was printed there. Now, it seems to me as though it's a lot different. I've noticed this in my own professional life. There'll be a story that I'm interested in, like, for example, if it's the goings-on at Aldersgate, as far as I know, that's really only being covered by the Charlotte Ledger. But there are other stories that are out there in the world that might be only covered by, like, one television station, right? Or and there's other stories that are only covered by maybe on WFAE, right? And so you have a challenge there. And so how does the Charlotte Ledger fit into that fragment? What is the niche that you tried to carve out for yourself in the larger media landscape?
Yeah, it's a great question. I guess I would say, what we're trying to do stories that are original. We're not trying, if there's a press conference that all the TV stations are at and all of the other media are at, we are unlikely to go to that press conference. We don't want to duplicate the effort that's being done out there. And there's a lot of good work that's being done out there. We're trying to do something that's different. We're trying to find stories that aren't getting covered. We're trying to, I think I gave a few examples in the piece on, for example, the funding of repairs at CMS schools for band and orchestra instruments. Nobody else covered that story. Is that a massive story in and of itself? No. Is it important to a lot of people? Yes. And it got some results. So that's the kind of stuff that we're trying to do, is to not just sort of follow the pack with our limited resources, but to deploy those in a way that sort of makes you smarter and that tells you things that you don't know about the community that you live in, while at the same time also saying we're going to cut through a lot of the noise that's out there. And if the Observer has a good article about something, or Axios or one of the TV stations, we'll say, hey, look, we're not going to go and re-report this. We'll just tell you, here's the link, here's the summary of what it is. If you are interested in that, go ahead and click on it. That's no skin off our back to acknowledge the reality that there are a lot of media organizations in town that are doing good work. We want to route people toward that good work, and we want to be seen as a digital publication that you can go to, that you can trust, that can give you a good sense of what's going on in your community, and that can tell you things you don't know.
A big piece of the puzzle is the business model that you chose when you started. And this is essentially the difference between the subscription model and the ad-based model. And you chose, in starting out, to make your money primarily through paid subscriptions. And that has a lot of consequences in terms of your own incentives. And you address this in your article with a picture of an AI-generated image of a kitten running through the city of Charlotte and a photo of paella from a local restaurant. And if I understood your point correctly, you're saying, like, these are some things that we could do that would be friendly to an algorithm, that would bring a lot of clicks to our website, that would enable us in turn to go to advertisers and say, look how many clicks we get, and charge money for ads, but that you're disinclined to do that. You're not inclined to do that for for one, it's not real. It's not necessarily adding to the community in a meaningful sort of way. And it's not your model. You have a subscription-based model where you are responsive to the desires of the people who are paying for and receiving the newsletter. And I wonder, 5 years down the road, how you see it, how it's going, and how you feel about that choice.
I do really like that business model because it really, as you point out, aligns our interests with the interests of our readers. And you might say, well, gosh, doesn't every publication do that? And I don't know that that's actually true.
No, I think in an ad-based model, that's
far
from
an ad-based model. And I will say, we do have sponsorships. So we do have people that, companies that want to reach our readers that make up about
15%.
I forget the number, something like that, 15 or so percent of our revenue. But, 70 some percent of our revenue is from paid subscriptions. And that means that we're working every day to try to serve the interests of our readers. And if we write an article that readers like and want to read, we will be rewarded. And if we don't, then we will lose subscribers. So it's a really good, the incentives are set up very well, as opposed to an ad-based model where you're trying to collect as many readers as possible, as many desirable readers, and then sell ads to market to those readers in a variety of forms. You get the separate email blasts, you have content or articles that you're sometimes unsure, is this what the author actually thinks, or are they being paid to provide this perspective, this really gushing perspective on this large company? So, but there are downsides. People hitting a paywall. People don't like paywalls. Right. They don't like reading 2 paragraphs of an article and then being denied the ability to read the rest of the article, especially if all they want to read is that one article. So, that is a downside. I do think it's appropriate, though, to say, listen, there's a value to this. We can't just give everything away for free. We're not going to give you the things for free. I mean, no other industry that I can think of does that. You don't walk into Home Depot and say, I need some mulch, and they say, yeah, just go ahead and take it, man. It's yours. Take it. Walk out with it. It doesn't. Yeah, we'll put an ad. We'll put an ad for some large company on the side of it, and then you're advertised to you in that way. Just take the mulch. No worries.
Okay, Charlotte Ledger. It's about, call it $10 a month or so, right? Like the monthly is $9.99, right? Is that basically right?
$9 a month or $99.
$9 a month. Okay, so yeah, $9 or $10 a month, right? And so in that way, you're less expensive than the New York Times, but you're kind of in the same ballpark as like the Washington Post or the Charlotte Observer, for that matter. A little bit less than those. And so if you're trying to so you're less expensive than other much larger organizations, but you're a lot more expensive than free, right? And so
infinitesimally more.
And so I just wonder, as you're trying to crack the code of getting subscribers, like how do you appeal to people? What's the pitch to people about this? Like, it's on the one hand, it seems expensive compared to nothing, but on the other hand, it's like a drop in the bucket compared to stuff that we spend money on without thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the pricing is hard because you're trying to assess it, and you're trying to get into people's brains and say, how do they perceive this? And yes, if I can get the New York Times for, I don't know what they charge,
well,
$18 a month.
That's
a very common.
25. Yeah, okay. I just looked at this today. It's like there's an introductory rate. They try to hook you. This is something to think about, right? They try to hook you for the first year. It's like $4 a month or something like that, and then it goes to 25. Right?
Okay. I mean, but it's extremely comprehensive, right? They are literally covering the world and doing it probably better than anybody else,
right?
We're less than half the cost of the New York Times, but are we doing half the work of the New York Times? No, of course not. We're doing far less.
Right.
Far less.
Right.
So, how do you perceive the value? I mean, the interesting thing is, there's no marginal cost. Our costs are the same whether we're writing for 100 people or 10,000 people.
Right.
And so it makes it, at least with a product, you're saying, okay, well, the mulch, there is a cost associated with producing that with each bag, and you can say, okay, well, we're going to mark it up a little bit. It's a little bit tougher in what we're doing.
Right.
I will say it's going to be interesting to see, Steve, sort of where this is all heading, because now with AI, I think we're going to see a lot more stuff produced that is of very low quality that is going to be available to people. And I don't know, and it's all going to be, all that stuff's going to be free. I think there's going to be a real difference between sort of the kinds of stuff that we're producing, which is a paid product largely, where we have professional humans doing the work, versus sort of this explosion that is coming of AI-generated crap.
I have a concern, Tony, that people are, number one, not going to be able to tell the difference, and number two, not going to care. I have that concern. And the AI proponents will point to the fact that people don't care as some kind of proof that the AI is just as good. And you and I may never agree, but then are we going to be stodgy, old, behind the times?
Well, I do hear myself saying, okay, the AI stuff is horrible. We are going to be better. And what we do can never be replaced.
Right.
I mean, that's sort of seat that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
In our case, I do think it happens to be true in this. Now, there are things that can be automated for sure. If there's information that exists somewhere in an electronic format, can AI go and format that in a way and produce that in a way that is equal to or better than a human can?
Well, you could get
Yes.
you could get AI to populate the event board, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, in theory. I mean, I can't. Somebody can.
You might be able to. I
Yeah.
mean, we might,
I'm just talking about my coding abilities are not that great. But a lot of what we do is based on human interaction and human back and forth and sources and talking to people to get information from people's brains that does not exist anywhere that is available in a format that a computer can get and rewrite. I mean, maybe that'll go away too at some point. I don't know. Or maybe more is going to be digitized and you could have an AI publication that entirely replaces what we do. I don't see it, at least not in the near term. And so I think that there's still going to be that divide, and I think it's going to be a little bit sharper.
I keep an eye on it. I mean, if it does seem like something that could be possible someday, it'd be nice to at least own the brand that the AI is working for.
Well, we're looking at a lot of this stuff and saying, how could we do it? Is the AI good enough that we could actually use this? We've been really beating the drum on trying to get city council minutes.
Right.
At one point they were 2 years behind in the minutes. Now they're maybe 6 months, and you might say, "Well, who cares?" Right? I mean,
no.
But the
care.
larger issue, that is an important issue. But one of the reasons I would like that is could we develop something where we say, "Hey, look, AI, go look at these minutes, ingest all of these minutes from the last couple years as your language model or whatever you call it, and okay, it's election time. Okay, well, how did this particular city council person? How did they vote? What is their voting profile?
Right.
What did what's important to them? As opposed to like, oh, yes, I favor the environment. Okay, well, how did you vote on things that related to the environment?
Right.
Could you do that? You could. I think we're approaching the point where we can definitely do things like that, and you can maybe create it. Say, what if you created a chat bot? Again, I don't know how big the market is for this, but
right.
To say, okay, I live in Plaza Midwood. Give me all the examples of Plaza Midwood being mentioned in front of the Charlotte City Council for the last 2 years. That's something certainly AI could do. And I mean, we're still in the early days of this, but I think there are definitely some things that we should be looking at.
Well, do you see yourself making a choice to start covering local politics in a way? It seems like something you've been almost assiduously avoiding in the time that the Charlotte Ledger has existed up to this point. Is that something you're thinking about getting into?
Yeah, I mean, we cover the election, so I mean, we summarize the candidates, we make voting information available on local races, I think, in a way that's really good and that frankly doesn't exist out there.
Well, let's close by talking about some things that you're proud of. I will put up Aldersgate to you as an example.
Just to provide the context, this is a series of articles just about Aldersgate, which is an East Charlotte retirement community that fell on some financial hard times. They had trouble repaying their vendors. They had trouble refunding some of their customers or their families or their former customers. State stepped in. And they've been going back and forth for, I don't know, a year and a half now. But the concern there among residents is real and it is tangible. I think it's going to be okay. I don't think it's going to shut down. They're talking about potentially selling to a different or combining with another retirement community.
Partnering with, I guess.
Affiliating.
There's a word that they use.
It's a very specific word.
Yeah. So Christina Bowling kind of led the charge on that. She's been doing the reporting on that, done a fantastic job, does a fantastic job in general. To me, that seems like just a perfect ledger. It's a very ledger-like story, right? Something I haven't seen somewhere else. It is important. and you're covering it with the highest standards of professionalism and journalistic integrity, right? Do you agree with that? And what else are you proud of that the Charlotte Ledger has done?
Yeah, I am very proud of that work. I mean, you look back over the course of the year and you say, what did we really nail and what did we really do well? And I think you're right. I mean, I think that's a very important story that for whatever reason, nobody else is paying any attention to. And Christina has just really, hit it out of the park and has been very fair, I think. And so when Aldersgate says, hey, look, we want to get the word out about what we're doing, they call Christina in and they sit down with her and it's not, I mean, I'm sure they would prefer that we not cover it, but we're going to cover it. I mean, there are a lot of other things over the course of this last year. I mean, I think just generally, trying to reflect the things that are going on in Charlotte that people should know about in a variety of formats. And we touched on some of them, the mountain, the coverage of the North Carolina mountains, some of the election hub. I think that's a really important one. I mean, there are lots of stories sort of day in and day out, both news stories that we break, keeping people ahead of the curve, to some of these step back pieces, trend pieces, looking at all kinds of different things, Steve. And really, and honestly, this podcast too, not necessarily this particular episode, but, but the ability to have conversations with people to sort of air that out and to try to reflect all of the things that are going on in Charlotte, which obviously nobody can ever do.
Well,
but trying taking those things and saying, listen, if you care about Charlotte and you want to know what's going on in Charlotte, we want to be that source for you. And so I think we continue to do a good job of that.
I think this particular episode could be an important piece of the puzzle. Not literally this episode, but this kind of episode. And this is what I mean. You take an article that the Ledger has run and you have a conversation with the people involved. And I think that there's something about hearing somebody's voice. I think that there's an opportunity there to talk about things and present more context, more information, a different spin, perhaps, on the same information. And so I think that the future is bright. I'm very proud of what you're doing, just as your friend and as somebody who's sort of been a cheerleader from the sidelines since the beginning. I'm amazed at how it's going. And I think that I have the same sense that I feel that you do, which is that more people should know about this, and however that needs to be done. And sometimes it may just be as simple as just keep grinding out the work until you attain a critical mass. If that's it, then keep doing that. If there is some kind of hack or trick or shortcut or something, then okay, great. But what you've already accomplished is remarkable to me, and I congratulate you for it.
Well, thanks, Steve. I appreciate the kind words, and thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode of the Charlotte Ledger podcast. Thank you, Tony, for spending time with me today.
Thanks, Steve.
That's it for today. Thanks for listening. This episode was produced by Lindsey Banks. You can find out more about the Charlotte Ledger by visiting thecharlotteledger.com.
QueenCityPodcastNetwork.com.